Peace, peace. Was good. So let YouTube go ahead and reach out and reach everybody before I tap in. So definitely in the meanwhile, we kind of wait for the YouTube to reach everybody. Let me know in the comments if you can actually hear me. If everything's good on that end, just want to make sure. Okay. Okay, so we good there. Okay. So yeah, so definitely let me know everything's good. And we're going to get into the soul to soul conversations on this evening. So hoping everybody is good. I know the people up north and the people in the Midwest still dealing with some cold. And actually, I know my peeps down south. I understand that y'all still dealing with some cold. So hoping everybody is, adjusting to the climatic changes that I'm quite sure we all prefer to be a little more warmer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is y'all probably know on the flyers we advertised that tonight I'm going to get into the soul numbers, the relationship pertaining to Tabitha and Chance Brown. A lot of us are probably familiar with them. Just the radiance that they exude from their relationship. Definitely if you're on social media, we all pretty much quite sure have witnessed and just see the natural authenticity that they have with each other. So we want to capture that. I want to um, do soul to soul conversation today and really tap in and kind of just do a part one, to capture Tabitha and Chance Brown's relationship. One of the things I like about the relationship, I think, um, just from our perception, it represents a level of beauty. It represents a level of sincerity. Um, a human. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not performative. It's just truly authentic, and I think a lot of people can just resonate with it. Um, they just capture just the realness. They're not, like I said, they're not performing or anything like that. And so, y'all been kind of chiming into on these Soul to Soul Conversation podcasts. Is that, as I always say, energy precedes reality. And so, what we're going to do is use the Living Soul Numerology Soul Guidance System to break down what their numbers are showing and to explain why this level of coherence, this high level connection that they seem to exude, that seems very natural. What is it? What's in their blend that allows them to flow and to just thrive and just be radiant, as they are, and why they just seem like they're just being true to themselves. Hey, you got to respect it. Okay. And so, as everybody's chiming in, peace, definitely just drop any comments or anything like that, any questions. And towards the end, I'll try to address any questions, anything, so forth. As I get into this, if some of you want more information about profiling your own relationship or profiling past relationships or profiling a potential that you might be interested in, um, check out, look at my description. There's a link there. Check out my book, the new book we just dropped, Elements of Us, a relationship analyzer tool. And even if you want to tap more into about your patterns, um, we're actually going to February 22nd. Also, well, February 21st and 22nd. You can choose either day. Um, for like 2 hours, we're going to go into understanding our patterns and relationships. And so, if you're interested in that as well too, feel free to register. I think the link is not in the description, but I will drop that in there uh, once we conclude this. But if you're on Facebook, There's an invite that's already kind of already out. Just check it and and connect. But let's go ahead and get into this. All right, so we're talking about Tabitha and Chance. And so Tabitha's number, for some of you that are aware of the living soul numerology, their soul numbers, Tabitha's soul numbers are 2485, 2485, and Chance numbers are 2878. And you can just hear real quick what jumps out very fast are the twos and the eights. So first of all, let me say it like this. One thing about the living soul numerology system, it highlights, and what I love about this system, that it highlights there's multiple love styles. A lot of times we might hear one or two. So inside the system, there's 9 different love styles. So that means when you and I come together, because we have 4 different soul primary numbers assigned to us, that means we can easily have 8 different love styles that's in the mix of our relationship. Now the question is, when we start to look at the push and pull factors with that, what is the outcome in that? Is there a seamlessness of smoothness and ease of the love style that we have, or there's some kind of bumpy waves in that? But also the love styles invites us to see that we express love differently and also from different aspects of ourselves. Okay. And so so speaking about the love style with Tabitha and Chance, one thing that jumps out is the number two. The number two represents the romantic love style. So they're very into that creating memorable experiences. Looking at their numbers, they don't have to like prompt each other to create a memory. They actually just love and thrives, and to do that, I think that's one reason why they seem very radiant in the public eye, because they naturally just love creating memories with each other. So it kind of just fits their relationship personality style. Okay. And so then also, the eights jumped up very strong. And so there's a preservative love style. So there's an aspect to them where they kind of like that traditional type of setup. They Southern. So you can kind of feel that and see that and witness that. But also preservative is that they're mindful of each other's well-being and each other's perseverance and preservation. And so that's beautiful. I think if I were to interject and my bias slanted opinion, I think one of the sad things when I see when people talk about relationships and stuff like that is that it almost goes against the preservative awareness that we should have of each other when we are in an intentional relationship with that, whatever type of dynamic that is. So I like whatever I'm highlighting this. I like that Tabitha and Chance, and just what they exude and represent, we kind of tap in and get that sense that at the end of the day is they're mindful of each other's uh you know preservation, and that is important, and that's especially if you're looking at trying to have long-term endurance in a relationship. You don't want to have to remind somebody about your well-being to them, and vice versa. They should be just automatically just woven into the psyche and into the heart of each other. And so in their love style dynamic, it's kind of already encrypted and embedded in them, so it's not hard for them when they, even when there's maybe separate different projects or just different, entertaining different things, there's always a back of their mind that I want to make sure that Tabitha is good, or I want to make sure that Chance is good. And so they exude that. And that's why we see this radiance in their relationship as we do. Okay. Feel free to share this YouTube with your friends. Let's get the algorithm to honor what we're doing tonight. Okay. And so we see that with their love style. But then also in that, there's something to talk about the energy hierarchy. So when we come together, there's like an energy field that's created. And so the personal energy field that Tabitha operates up under, when we look at all of her soul numbers, and her numbers are 2485. But what that begins to create, it creates what we acknowledge as a feminine neutral energy. Feminine neutral energy actually oversees and polices the relationship domain, um, energetically. It oversees relationships, it's into love, but it's also very creative. It's a neutral feminine energy. So it doesn't get too caught up in attention. It doesn't get too caught up in being extreme on one side or the other. It just has a natural ability to flow, to love, to bridge connections, to generate unity. That's one thing about the feminine neutral is that it likes to generate unity. Okay, and so there's a natural aspect of harmonization that kind of just moves through the psyche and the energy or the force that she brings into the relationship as an individual, because we know that there is no togetherness without separateness. So the separateness of Tabitha in the energetic hierarchy understanding, she actually comes from the feminine neutral. And those of you that are aware of the living soul neuron system, we know that's the number four. And the number four represents the sexual energy. And so the creative aspect, you know what I'm saying, the birthing of the experience of life. Okay. And so she kind of comes with that. All right. And so then we look at Chance, his his energetic arc that he operates from is actually a dual effect, um, but it's primarily masculine. Okay. And so he comes from he can toggle between either a masculine dominant hierarchy or a masculine submissive. And he's more, when you look at his numbers in detail, he scores more in the submissive position. Okay, so what that lets us realize is that he's normally in a masculine submissive hierarchy that he might favor based off of the positioning of the masculine energy. So his position of masculine energy is not necessarily highly put in the dominance, but it does have a dominance. So some of you that have been following for a while, just to pivot a little bit, we talk about you hear me mention about masculine energy, androgynous, and feminine energy. These are gender energies that generate, it's like the engine, the motor that drives really inside the relationship. But then also in terms of the power dynamics, like how is, what's the tendency of the gender energy and how it expresses itself, then we talk about the energy position. And that can either be through dominance, neutral, or submissive. A lot of you know that a woman can have masculine energy. A man can have feminine energy. Okay. And so in this case, Tabitha is more in the feminine and Chance is more in the masculine. And when we observe and see, we can see that type of interplay that's kind of just naturally that just flows, with them. Okay. And so their energy hierarchy, when I talk about them individually, so Tabitha comes from that feminine neutral, Chance going to operate most of the time in the masculine submissive, which is cool because the masculine submissive is letting you realize, even though he's assertive, even though he's operating the masculine, there's a component where he knows how to, he's submissive, he's supportive. So it lets you realize that he has an ability to yield and not always have to always be up front. He knows how to lead by being the water around the roots and still lead, even though everybody's going to recognize the tree. Okay. And so I think that's beautiful kind of with their relationship is that when we think about their dynamic, the first thing we think is Tabitha. Okay. Now, if Chance was probably too caught up in the traditional patriarchal rule set in relationships, well, I'm supposed to be respecting this man, but he doesn't get caught up in that. I don't, if I add myself personal injection into it, I don't think he gets caught up in that. I think he naturally just is all good because they just have a natural rhythm, and he has no problem shifting to the submissiveness because he even understands that he's still who he is, but you understand he can lead from a submissive space, and it'll just be more masculine, right? And so, and then Tabitha doesn't really have any indifference to it because when she's operating that feminine neutral, okay, and some of you probably aware of the living soul neuron system and be like, well, when we look at Tabitha's numbers, we don't see the number four. I'm sorry, you do see I'm sorry, you do see number four when you call it. You're like, well, damn, I wouldn't think that she's primarily coming from the feminine neutral space, but when you put it all together, it does. And so when we look at that, the feminine neutral, and we compare it to Chance's energy archery, which is the masculine submissive, I didn't mention, it's the number 8. Well, there's a good relationship there. You know, the 8 to the 4, there's a harmony there. Okay. And so then on the back end, so they just, they get along very well. Now, also, with those two blend, one thing that jumps out to mind real quick is that means they have a strong air. They have a strong ability to innovate. They have a strong ability to be unconventional. Um, Tabitha's willing to be unconventional. Chance has an aspect, Chance has a get up and go about himself too as well. And so they have this unique personal blend. It's not by accident that they have this radiance and that this captured this nice entrepreneurial experience that they a lot of us got to witness for them just going from the bootstraps to expanding their brand. But you look at their numbers, it's already in sync for that to happen. Energy precedes reality. And so even them to be just getting it done, unconventional, we see that in Tabitha a lot. So with all that in mind, it makes sense. Now, so together, when the energy arc comes together, they primarily are governed. So we like what energy actually governs their relationship? It's the masculine submissive. Okay. And so when you look at that, Tabitha doesn't have too much wrestling against that. Um, she can flow primarily because that neutral position that she has, and then the feminine aspect that knows how to kind of just be received and be receptive. So they just able to bounce back each other. So what that means is that they have good polarity energy. Okay, their polarity energy is fairly strong and very honorable. So that's good. So when you talk about polarity, that means their social and sexual battery is less likely to deplete or to fizzle out. They have enough polarity in their relationship. Um, they have enough polarity in their relationship to keep them going without a lot of effort. And so I saw someone ask me about the numbers that we're doing. So Tabitha Brown's numbers are 2485, and Chance's numbers are 2878. Okay. And so now when we tap into, y'all know we got these gender energy, we also have these soul elements. And we have 5 of them that we recognize as the earth, wood, the water, the metal, the air, and the fire. And so the earth, these soul elements shows a lot. And some of you, I know I've been getting a lot of people reaching out and, really curious about knowing more about these elements and how it pertains to relationships. Again, so I invite you to look at the description, on here. I have the link in there for you to go ahead and grab up the Elements of Us, the relationship analyzer tool. It gives you a good introductory. You don't have to be very well versed in numerology or anything like that. I laid out very easy for you, so you can go in and really to profile your relationship and kind of get a good gist. And it also gives you a good insight into these elements and how the role they play in our relationship. But just for a basic overview, so we talk about the earth wood, that's that steadiness, that's that regular routine, that's that sustainability. So a lot of times I look at people's individual soul numbers. I look at see where their earthwood is placed there. What's the score of it? Because here's the thing. I know a lot of times we all been layered and indoctrinated a certain script that we're all, when we come together, that we're all targeted to be long term. That's not true. I'm sorry. Well, I'm not sorry, but then I am sorry. Some of you, some of your relationship dynamics is not set to be long term. If you lack the earth wood and you shallow on the water and have minimum, the metal, you're more likely, or you got like a lot of fire in your profile and your fire really dominates. Fire dominated people are more short stint, midterm relationship, and that's fine. You might find yourself having connections, and you might find yourself in and out of a relationship probably every 5 years or something like that, 5 to 7 years. Don't mean you have bad run out with the last person, but there's this aspect where you might have more relationship cycles with different people compared to people that has strong earth, water, or metal presence in a soul profile. and they're not in conflict, they're not in contragravity with each other. They have more of a longer, sustainable projection or a likelihood or a tendency to yield to more of a long term. When I say, we'll just say, be nice to say, we'll say long term, um, 10 years plus. So what I'm getting at is this, is that some of us just need to embrace that some of us are more fixed and more aligned for short stint oriented relationships versus continually ongoing. And some of you, that's why some of you are frustrated because y'all, some of you are trying to force or put the standard that we're supposed to be long term. No, be present, understand how dynamic is, and in the midst of y'all understand that, then you might realize you extend time. But if you try to put this pressure cooker on like y'all really are aligned, a lot of times people don't even have the skill set to be long term. Can we just be honest tonight? A lot of people don't have the competency, the heart, the consistency, um, the selflessness that moves through them to really have extended long period term relationship to share with someone intentionally. Some people need breaks and gaps, right? And they're just not set for um, don't expect them to be on a 20-year stint with a person or a selected group of people. They're just not, it's just not in their makeup. So that's fine. So, anyways, I'm getting at is the elements can help you see that, and also looking at your archetypes, look at the polarity going inside yourself, and also your soul state with your energy inside yourself, and also look at your own personal push and pull and resilience factor that moves inside within your own soul and your own well-being. That gives us a lot of indication on the endurance impact in the relationship. When we look at Chance and Tabitha, they really show, even though it's interesting, okay? Now their water score is not that strong, but their water score is not in conflict with each other. So it actually resonates. But what's interesting is that they have a strong metal. They have this strong fire. And it's not a random fire. It's a very fire that generates properly, that gives them fuel for a longevity impact relationship. Now, because of we look at their scores, 2.485 and 2.878, they actually have a strong pull energy. And you heard me talk about that before. We did a live about that before, talking about the pull energy and pull and push. And they have a strong pull. And I'll mark that right there. And I'll come back to that. Let me finish talking about these elements. So we talk about the earthwood element. That's the steadiness, that's the routine, that's sustainability. Okay. Water is the emotional component. That's obvious, right? But it's also the bonder. The water helps us to bond in our relationship. So that's why I said it's one of those things I look at, or one of the things that a profiler will look at, or a soul reader will look at, and see in terms of the aspect of relationship. They're trying to get a capture of what's the bonding effect. And is that bonding effect clear of certain gravities, certain tensions or imbalances or extremes that might pull at it to weaken the bonding factor? Because you might have strong water, but there might be other different shadows that we operate in that might pull the essence of that water to weaken its bonding effect, even though it's there. Okay. But you might have to work through the proper, I guess the word we say, we have to do the integration of those shadows within inside yourself and also inside the relationship in order for that bonding effect to work its optimal influence that's set and deemed inside the relationship. Okay. And so the water is also dealing with the vulnerability. We know a lot of us wrestle with vulnerability with individuals, but the vulnerability is also an ingredient for bonding. The vulnerability is also the ingredient for connection. Okay. And so when you look at Tabitha and Chance's, Tabitha has a nice amount of water. And Chance, that's one of the low areas that he scores in the water. But that's okay because that works in where he lacks, she fills. And it's a nice blend with theirs. And so she's able to bring in the vulnerability. She protects his vulnerability. Um, I think you see the flow. He's probably got to the point where he's able to welcome that, and he feels very comfortable with his vulnerabilities with her. There's a level of trust there. There's a level of intimacy there, and then she has that, and so that makes their bond, effective. Okay, and they score together well when you put them together. Chance, that's his weaker element. Um, but when you put them together, they definitely they cut the threshold for the water to be effective and actually keep the relationship buoyant. Okay, and so when we talk about that, we talk the metal, the responsibility, joint responsibility, being clear, having that foundation, um, you know, uh, boundaries, the obvious part, being able to execute together. A lot of people, when we come together in a relationship, it's like, how can y'all get things done together? How do you execute together? Now, when you look at that and look at the earthwood and the metal, that gives us a strong indication of how well that you're likely we can project that you can work well together and execute together. Well, it's obvious, right? Chance and Tabitha scores very high with that. They execute very well together and get it done. And we see that when we watch on social media. So it's not a surprise. But Chance, one of his strong element with him is the metal. Tabitha it has some metal in hers, but Chance brings a lot of that metal. So Chance brings that infrastructure that actually Tabitha yields and desires and welcomes, and where she brings that water to bring that refreshing or that emotional reset capability, right? Or that motivation or to help soften him up, she's got that department. So in this case, we talk about opposite, the opposite effect, the polarity factor right there. And so when we talk about attraction, I want to bring this out because everybody says like attracts like. Yes, but then like also attracts to what we're open to. So Chance has low score water, but he's open to receive water. Tabitha has a weaker metal score, but she's open to receive Chance's metal. And so in their case, and there's not a lot of pull going against it. So it works. And it's like, I got what you need. One thing I wanted to say tonight is sadly, we got a lot of young voices out here talking about relationships. And it's gotten to extreme to the point where we forget that inside a relationship, you're here to work together. And when you think about that, sometimes you might lack something versus me trying to penalize with you. I realize, you know what, I might be the missing puzzle to you that you need. And I might bring that puzzle to you, and that might just boom, it just elevates you. And vice versa. The other person they might look at you and be like, I see what you need, and I'm gonna bring that piece of the puzzle to you. And I elevate that inside you. And then if it's properly captured up under your energy hierarchy together, y'all can do something. And what we're witnessing with Tabitha and Chance, they exude that at this current time. They project that, they look at that, and it's just naturally on them. And it's very good to witness and to observe. And that's what I want to do tonight is to point out so you can see what it looks like. So let me just shift here real quick. I'm still going to talk about the elements, but I was talking about earlier about the pull and the push. And the reason I want to sidestep right here because I want you to look at their relationship. They have their score in the pool is 68%. That's very high. That's very strong inside the liver cell numeracy system. Very strong pool. And then their push is 32. Okay. So that means they have strong resilience inside their relationship. They can navigate, troubleshoot, execute, endure things fairly easy. Or if they challenge, they can kind of bounce back, reset each other, and keep it moving. They can grind it out if they need to. They have a lot of good things working on their side energetically. Okay. And so that's very important because when you start talking about the endurance relationship, and sometimes when challenges come, you start to treat each other differently. What we see, because there's a strong metal, there's a strong water, because water means flexible, right? Being able to be adaptable. They also share in the same air score. So they have that adaptability. The air and the water is a lot of strong adaptability, so they score very well there. Um, they're able to adjust to situations that face them, and not just adjust, but they can collectively execute under fire and solve problems together. They score very high, very well with this, and it shows in their relationship. It shows why they can just be in business together and make moves and just be responsible, share the responsibility, be preservative, be in mindset of each other. They have all that working inside their mix. Okay. And so I want to show what it looks like to have a high pull score because it's natural blend. You ain't got to force it. And they exude that. Okay. So now back to the elements when I was talking about, the metal, the responsibility, the clarity, the boundaries, things like that. And then the air is the intellectual connection. The air captures the intellectual connection, the innovation, the flexibility, right? And we talk about the fire, the spontaneity, the passion, uh, the ability to change. They got a very nice fire score. Actually, they're sustainable, and we call it relationship intelligence. Their relationship, when they come together, they operate from that keeps their relationship stable, is technically from the air element and the fire element. The metal elements involved too, but the metal element's a little bit more extreme. So probably um, there's moments where, and probably where the metal's so strong, they might hit periods where things are kind of inflexible, but they know how to look at it and readjust and make things flexible. But the thing that the undergirding intelligence that they operate from to keep their relationship. So when we talk about the relationship intelligent piece, we're talking about the ability to navigate challenges, problems, and also how they communicate primarily, what's their conflict resolution styles and so forth. Majority of it's going to come from the air and the fire, and also the metal be involved in it too. But they what keeps it keeps the metal in check basically. So it allows the metal to be the strength. Sometimes when you have an extreme score, it can bring in the shadows aspect of it. So this is why the air and the fire shows up more favorable for their relationship intelligence system that they operate from, which is all cool because with the air, they innately ask each other and they seek to understand each other. They naturally do that. That builds a long-term connection. I talk about something, when I sit down and spiritually, counsel folk with relationships. I always talk about the love cube, and inside that love cube, you have love, knowledge, understanding, and peace. And but the thing that which you really want to be inside the cube that you really want to be locked in it is the understanding, because the understanding is going to have the love, the knowledge, and the peace. And understanding reduces the competition inside the relationship. It reduces the power struggle. So interesting, even though they have a strong metal and it's an extreme, because their air is strong, they seek the understanding of each other, so they don't allow power structure to become their nemesis because it can become very easy inside the relationship dominant. I mean, in the relationship dynamics, because the metal is very strong, but the metal is checked, and it's checked because they seek the understanding of each other. Some of you is listening to think about some of the relationship conflicts you have, and some of you probably trying to figure out some things. Ask yourself the question: did I seek out the understanding with my lover? Or was I always involved with trying to prove my point or trying to punish someone for from an expectation not being met? They don't go through that. And it shows they have high pool. High pool relationships don't have those little back and forth banters like that. Some of you think that's normal. That's just the frequency that you operate in. But they don't have that. They don't go through that. They skip over that. Okay. And so there's an aspect to seek the understanding of each other. There's another aspect with the fire. The fire is a part of the intelligence too. And the fire, what's interesting is strong, but it's controlled. It's controlled. And so fire also represents attraction. They have a strong continuing attraction with each other. We see that. But what I love about their attraction, and I like to always bring up the distinction, some of you know, if you catch that in my book too, Activate Your Lover, I talk about the aspect of resonance. And so I'm gonna mention this right here, is that their attraction converts into high resonance. It shows in a push-pull scores and it's showing a resilience score. They have this natural attraction to each other, great polarity with each other, but then they have a resonance with each other. So what am I saying? They feel at home with each other. They warm each other very naturally. Think about it. You're not going to leave something that makes you feel at home or warm, or is a less likelihood, which then contribute to long-term intentional relating, as we kind of seeing what they kind of exude, right? And so the energetics is basically there for them to have a long, sustaining, continuing engaging relationship. All right. And so when we look at that, and so one of the good things I want to bring up before I pop off of here is that one of the strong suits that they have that allows their bond to be very strong and radiant is, even though they have the strong metal, because the metal represents the ethical compass inside a relationship. It represents the ethical compass. And but there's a level of clarity that they bring to each other. Matter of fact, looking at their numbers, they're more open to embracing each other's truths more than the average couple does. Now that gets a little touchy. Because you ask yourself the question is, are you really open? Do you really welcome your lover's truths? Chance and Tabitha, there's a lot of truths that they will to share with each other, and they protect each other's vulnerabilities that they just have, and that just brings in their bond. That brings in their bond. That's a strong power suit in a relationship, and also protectiveness. They both show in their numbers that they are very protective of each other and very protective of what they have, and so that's also was contributing to their chemistry that we witnessed that looks very radiant. Okay. And so if they face conflict, they know how to restate their boundaries, and they also know how to de-escalate the situation. And that's important because sometimes you have high metal, you can get very positioned in what you think and you feel, and you get very rigid. And all of a sudden now the authoritarian aspect kicks in, or the power struggle kicks in. But they have an ability to decenter or to de-escalate those things before it becomes a problem. And that shows in the resilience score. Their resilience score can catch things before it becomes full bloom. They have a great ability to capture things in seed form before it even takes root and grow. Some of us we ignore all the seeds and we start letting shit grow. And once it gets to a grown aspect, then we respond to it. They have a level of fluidity and a connection or harmony in a relationship because they have a unique ability to identify small foxes in the vine that will spoil. Those saying small fox will spoil the whole vine. They are able to identify that. They're able to look at the contra seeds that doesn't match what their mission is or match what they are individually. They're able to recognize each other's blind spots that they might not recognize, and they're able to protect that vulnerability. They're able to stay on code. They're able to stay in protocol with what they're personally agreed to and how they're moving. And it shows in their union. So I want to share that right there. We'll do a part 2 covering Tabitha and Chance, because there's a lot more we can get into. We can talk about the psychological score, intimacy they have with each other, and so forth. but I really want to just set the tone. So basically, uh, Tabitha and Chance, they're together. Their pool score is a 68. Their push is 32. Um, it gives high resilience. They operate up under the energy hierarchy as a masculine submissive. They both don't really have a lot of conflict with that overarching energy that's overseeing. Um, their relationship intelligence really centers around the air element and the fire element. The metal's there too, but the air and fire keeps their metal in check. And so they have an ability to be clear with each other and to maintain the clarity. They both don't desire things to muddy their waters. They love the clarity. And so that's good. It shows in their harmony. So before I hop off here, let me just check and see what some of the comments is as we close out. Your water bonding sounds like we have to become more transparent. Absolutely. 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 And sometimes that's what happens because we don't trust that transparency, right? And so that begins to compromise the water. So it's very important for us to find, and that is a lot of, and some people just naturally allows you to become vulnerable. Just their presence in your life just activates. Some people just activates vulnerability. You probably never been vulnerable to anybody else, but it's like, but with this person, I'm able to be vulnerable. And so when that vulnerability comes, guess what happens? The bond gets stronger. The bond gets stronger. Tabitha and Chance are havens for each other. And it just shows in the number. This is why they have, they have high pull, strong pull. That's what it looks like. That's why I want to bring that out today so everybody kind of can see that. Okay. So let me look again. I think everybody is good. So that's what's up. This will be available on here. Also, appreciate everyone chiming in again. Look in the description, grab my new book, Elements of Us, the relationship analyzer tool. Also, to let y'all know, I will be this year in 2026. We're going to be doing relationship discovery mixers. In other words, these are rejuvenating experiences to understand the patterns inside our relationship. A lot of us are trying to redefine how we're moving in our mature years in life and relating and so forth. A lot of us are we have experience enough to understand, well, my personal gear in relationships needs to be this, point A, point B. What is that? Some of us need to understand, what do we attract? What do we attract to? What attracts to us? So we'll be doing these 2-day relationship mixers. They're called relationship discovery mixers. And we're coming to different cities. We're currently taking the generating interest list. So we already got Indianapolis on schedule for July 30th and 31st. We definitely going to be hitting Atlanta. We just haven't set the date yet. We're definitely hitting Baltimore. We got people who've been reaching out from the Baltimore area, DMV area. We also got some interest generating in Ohio. But we got we're getting, and then Oakland. We definitely want to get out there and show some love with those people. So I'm setting out to try to hit about 6-7 cities. If more unfolds, then it's fine. Oh, and Houston is definitely, on the projection for it too. So just be on the lookout for that. Also, so if you want to get on the email network so you can kind of get these notifications. And I encourage you to join as a member inside the be a Soul Vibe member inside my Patreon. And I appreciate everybody that's on the Patreon and is subscribing. There's some additional benefits in there. I actually launched a podcast called Living Soul Discovery Podcast on Spotify, and also you can, if you're on you're a member inside Patreon, you can take the RS code from that, and whatever source you listening to your podcast, Apple or whatever, you can just plug it in there, and you can play it from right there. Okay, so I just want to welcome you to that. So just Google Patreon, Living Soul, and you'll see how that'll pop up. And and you'll tap in, okay. And so again, thank you in advance for joining. Definitely, and if you're not a paying member, just go ahead and join me on Patreon because I share and will be continuing to share a lot of stuff over there. There's a lot of audio drops there. There's an audio library that's really geared all around, not just in a relationship, but just around with your whole well-being. Okay. And so there's a vault there for your well-being. Okay. So we'll turn back down again. Hey, that's what's up. One love.